Hi, I'm Larissa from Beekeeping Made Simple, and welcome to my new Pennsylvania apiary. It has been 12 years since I have had bees in Pennsylvania. I am starting from scratch after moving back from Hawaii. And you know, when you move 5,000 miles, you don't take much with you. So I'm going to talk about the things I am doing differently this time around, since I have to buy all new equipment and I'm in a totally new location, to hopefully help you avoid some of those beginner mistakes that I made when I was getting started. First things first, a big thing that I did this time is I spent a lot of time figuring out the location of my hives. Within our acre lot that we have, I chose a spot that is away from people. We have all these trees and bushes separating this area where the apiary is from the grassy lawn where the kids like to play. And I also put my hives down before I got my bees and before I leveled the spot and put the hive stands on. And that was to just make sure that my bees were getting the morning sun, because it is a cooler area, not crucial in Hawaii and the warmer climates, but here where it's still going down to 30s and 40s at night, it's important that they have the morning sun hitting their front entrance when the sun comes up in the sky. I also put my bees on cinder blocks. This costs money. Cinder blocks are like $2.50 a piece, and I'm using 4 per hive. Before I had them on pallets, and I actually prefer the cinder blocks, each one on its own set of cinder blocks, because I like space between my hives. When I had them on pallets, there were 4 to a pallet, and so there was only one side of the hive that you could really work on when checking them, and I prefer giving them some space. When it comes to equipment, I started out with top bars. I am not going to make that mistake again. I found it really hard to find information, help from other beekeepers, feeders for the top bars, help on how to properly overwinter my top bars. And so this time I am working with Langstroth style hives. I prefer them, and it is more of the standard in my area. And so I saw on the Bee Club website someone was selling a used Layens hive, and it was tempting to try out these different hive styles because it's fun to try these different things. But I decided to really focus in this first year on what every first and second year beekeeper should be working on, which is keeping your hives alive. And then you can work on other stuff and gadgets and different hive styles and things like that later on. But first, focus on the big thing, which is keeping your bees alive. And that's something that a lot of beekeepers cannot accomplish. I also, now that I'm not in my 20s and working as a freelancer, I am investing right off the bat in some better quality stuff. I bought a nice steel hive tool. I got a veil that is wire mesh that, you know, it isn't the cheapest $10 veil on Amazon. I like these Eli and Ezra hives from Galena Farms. They are still made from pine, but a nicer pine with few knots in them. They have these really nice joints. It's not just a plain old dovetail like most hive bodies. It's kind of a combination of a rabbet joint as well as a dovetail joint. And after making my own boxes, I have found that those miter joints last a lot longer than just a finger and dovetail joints that most beekeeping supply places sell. Often you use your hive tool to crank those boxes apart, and that's when this starts to fall apart. So you want these to be really strong. So I bought a little bit higher quality stuff to start because I know that I like beekeeping and I want this to be something that I continue with for many years. The next thing I did, which I really did not do when I had bees in Pennsylvania or Hawaii, was I then joined a beekeeping association. I did join the Philly one, but I didn't go to a lot of meetings. I didn't talk with a lot of people at the association. I didn't I didn't sign up for any other classes. I didn't sign up for any classes this year, but I did immediately sign up and go to some of their events that they have in person as well as Zoom events. And I went there just to say hi and to meet people. You know, so when I have a question, there's at least people I can go to ask, but also to find out where I can buy bees from. So I bought I started with 3 colonies this time. And you can start with 2. My first year I started with 1. That was a huge mistake. I think starting with 3 colonies is a good way to go. And I bought 1 package and 2 nukes. Now, it was really interesting installing these bees. The nuke installation is so much easier than package installation. When you install your bees with a package, fortunately it was in the 70s that day, and so even though there are bees flying around and stuff, they go back in the hive and they release their pheromones to let the bees flying around know where their queen is, and all was well. But the week before, when I thought I was supposed to get my packages, it was in the 40s. And installing a package with that kind of temperature is not ideal. And you'll even see that these 2 hives have quite a bit of activity. But the hive that had the package in it has a lot less activity. And that's to be expected because that's a couple pounds of bees, like with 5,000. These nukes probably had 5,000 bees in them as well, but they also had frames full of capped brood that were going to be hatching within days. You're going to have like 1,000 bees hatching within the next week or so. And that hive's population is only going to get smaller and smaller, because although the queen is out of her cage and released, it is going to be about 4 weeks before that first egg hatches to an adult worker bee that can start helping out the hive. I set up a water source. The bowl on the right has salt water. It is 1 quart of water and 1 teaspoon of salt, and the other side is just water from the hose. And these are pretty simple structures, nothing fancy, not the prettiest, but it is pretty warm out. It is in the low 80s, and you'll see that the bees have been going to this water source from the start. I will say though that you really want sturdy things for them to land on. If they try to land and they get their legs wet, they're not happy and they often fly away. They seem to prefer it when there's very little water. And finally, the biggest thing I'm going to do is focus on dealing with Varroa mites. Because after all, it's all these little things, installing bees when it's a little bit colder out, having even water for your bees, figuring out hive styles, when to harvest, those things are nowhere as important as dealing with Varroa mites. My first year, I had the we'll wait and see approach. I'm not going to treat unless I think there is a problem. And there's just a lot of room for error in that method. Right now, my hives are small, and they are too small. Their population is too low to do a mite test. And so I am going to treat for mites within these first 2 weeks, so that I know that their mite levels are low and I don't have to worry about the potential of having to treat when there's honey in the hives. There are some treatments that say you can put them in when there's honey coming in, but it also says on many of these packages, not recommended, but you can. And personally, I don't want to consume honey that was in the hives when there was a treatment in. And then I am going to make sure that I have a plan ready for treating in the late summer and also in the fall, and how to properly prepare my hive for winter. Those are when bees die. And my #1 goal is to keep my bees alive this year. So that is my plan, and I am not going to worry too much on all the other little things. You know, don't sweat the small stuff, but focus on the big ones that really determine whether your hive is going to make it that first year or not. Thanks for watching. See you next time.